Yes, oh, perfect. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We're delighted to be here. And I have Beth and Maria here with me. And first, Beth, I wanted to ask you, tell me about your climate journey. Like, how did you end up where you are, basically here this time?
Yeah, I guess just to give you guys the context, so obviously we're here to discuss the Arctic and Moratorium. So can everyone hear me okay as well? So yeah, I first got involved with Arctic work a couple of years ago. So I started off in 2019 organising school strikes. From there, kind of started organising nationally and internationally on climate justice, and then got involved with this network called the Arctic Angels, which Maria and I are part of. And it's essentially run by GlobalChoices, which is an international organisation focused on protecting the Arctic. So we're a network of young women from around the world who are essentially trying to do our best to protect the air conditioning of Earth systems. And yeah, through that I got involved with working on the Moratorium, which we'll tell you guys a bit about in a moment. I went to COP28 with them last year to present on that. And now I'm currently Ireland's Climate Youth Delegate, which essentially means I work with the Irish government to put forward youth priorities on their COP priorities, kind of advise on them, get that youth voice there as well, and still working with GlobalChoices to further this kind of legal Arctic protection. Yeah.
Thank you, Beth. And what about you, Maria? How did you end up here?
Okay, so hello everyone. I hope you're all doing well. So I'm Maria, I'm from Pakistan. I hold a master's in environmental sciences, and then I went back to Pakistan and I started working with different environmental consultancies. But in the meantime, I started Pakistan Youth Biodiversity Network. It's a network of young volunteers who are working all across Pakistan about biodiversity education mostly and policy interventions. And then while doing that, I went to COP16 and where I met Inge, the lead for GlobalChoices, and she was like, okay, with the work you do, Arctic is important for everyone, so you should come in. And I believe that was true, and since then I'm part of the same network as you mentioned, and I'm working mostly within conservation, climate change, sustainability, and that's pretty much it about me. And I guess I'm really glad to be here today and with you guys, all of you.
Thank you, Maria. Now, of course, the sort of title of the talk is about sort of, we cannot grow ice, but why is the Arctic important? I mean, we're sort of quite far away from it. So Beth, you go first. Why is the Arctic important?
Well, I guess, I don't know how many of you are in the room from an Arctic nation. So I'm from Ireland, which is definitely not an Arctic nation. It's cold, but not that cold. And so I think when I first came across the Arctic Angels, I wasn't really too sure how it related to me. I knew the Arctic was important. It was kind of the classic thing that I'd heard of the polar bears on the ice and everything in school. But beyond that, I don't think I'd really engaged with the Arctic. And I think it was through this network that I really learned how important it is. And I think the metaphor we like to use is that it's like the air conditioning of the Earth system. So as wind and things move through the Earth's ecosystems, the Arctic and the Antarctic on the south help to cool it. And if we lose that ice, that ability to cool our air decreases. Another really important thing about the Arctic is something called the albedo effect. So as we know, sun's rays come down to Earth. That's what allows us to be alive. But some of them get reflected by the ice back out into the atmosphere and out of the atmosphere. When that ice is not there, the heat and the rays from the sun get absorbed into the oceans, which make the oceans warmer, makes it harder for marine life, causes sea level rise. So essentially, the Arctic, our catchphrase is what happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
And so as the ice melts, we lose our air conditioning, we lose the ability to keep our Earth system cool, and we also lose that really crucial albedo effect, which enables us to reflect the sun back out into the atmosphere. So I think through learning about that as someone from an island nation, a coastal nation, like Ireland, that made me really concerned because sea level rise is obviously a huge risk for Ireland, for most coastal cities and nations as a whole. And I think that was what really made me realise this is not enough of a priority from our political leaders everywhere.
Thank you, Beth. And what about for you, Marie? I mean, why is it like somebody from Pakistan, is interested in Arctic issues? Like, where is the relationship?
Okay, thank you. It's a very important question, and I guess it's very important for everybody to know because in Pakistan we are already facing a lot of climatic issues. Like, I will be in a language that you all understand. Like, for example, right now in Pakistan there is a city, and most of our cities, they are like covered with smoke. And when it's smoke, I remember I was in Lahore back in 2019, and it's 2024 now. And yeah, exactly when I would do this, I would feel that something is cutting my throat. right? And it's that bad. And it was 2019, it was like not still high AQI, and right now the AQI is like, if the limit is 300 for hazardous, we have across 800, 900. Can you imagine climate problems? And then we have floodings. And I'm talking right now about like all the other problems on the side, but you know, right now we don't have air to breathe. And it's such a big problem. And if we don't have the cooling mechanism, if we don't have the temperature regulations, how things will go more bad. We had in 2022, we had floods, and these floods affected more than 10 million people. And it's not a small population. When I say that affected, it means they lost their homes, they lost their work, they lost their cattle, they lost their agriculture, every single thing. So it's impact, and we are being impacted agriculturally, we are being impacted economically, then there is psychological impact, there is health impact, so whatnot. So if we do not have like an Arctic, living Arctic, as she said, that what stays in what happens in Arctic, it's not staying in the Arctic. And a country like Pakistan, of course, when there is going to be sea level rise, when there are like going to be more high temperatures, so what more worse we can, like what worst we can expect. So that is the reason why I believe that it's very important for all of us to speak about Arctic, and we shall all, you know, be concerned that if something happens over there, I don't know what worse could happen. Like it's already worst. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Maria. And then I know sort of very sort of we can see it again, for example, you know, sort of in, like the floods in Valencia, not for like last week. And now, you know, we talk about the Arctic, we talk about having a moratorium. Now, what is a moratorium? Like, Beth, can you tell us a bit more about the moratorium and what it means?
Yeah, so like I said, GlobalChoices was founded as an organisation aimed at protecting the Arctic, because despite how important it is for us all, a lot of the time it's not really spoken about in political circles. And so the main proposal from GlobalChoices as an organisation is a 10-year moratorium on industrial activity in the Arctic. So to give you a bit of context, the Arctic is warming 3 times faster than the rest of the world, so it's in really, really dire straits. And my personal reaction to the ice melting in the Arctic is that we should probably fix it, we should probably stop it melting before it's too late. Some people see the ice melting as an economic opportunity. And so they see it as an opportunity to have more ships pass through the Arctic, to have oil drilling to drill for gas, because historically, because of the ice, which keeps our Earth livable, we weren't able to access that. But now, as the ice melts, some say, well, we can make money off of this. And so as the ice is increasingly melting, there's increasing interest from companies and from some states in exploiting the Central Arctic Ocean, because the area we're talking about is beyond national jurisdiction. So that means is you have some states that surround the Arctic, like Canada, Norway, Sweden, etc. And they all have little bits of the ocean that they own in terms of international law. But then there's a little bit of the Arctic around the North Pole, quite a large bit of the Arctic around the North Pole, that no country owns. And so that means it's governed by all of us as an international community. And what that means is lots of countries and companies are trying to exploit that area. And so it's up to us as an international community to protect that area. Because when ships pass through ice, for instance, the ice breaks and the ice never heals. Once that ice is broken, you are losing the albedo effect, you are losing that ancient ice, and that's not even thinking about the biodiversity, the animals that live on that ice, that depend on that ice, and the communities that live around the Nordic states, particularly Indigenous communities who rely on the Arctic Ocean for their livelihoods. And so we're essentially saying the ice is melting, we cannot allow it to continue getting damaged and weakened by further economic activity. We cannot afford to have all of the pollution and the damage that comes from drilling for oil and gas in the Central Arctic Ocean, for instance. And so essentially we need a 10-year pause on industrial activity in the Central Arctic Ocean before it begins and before in some areas it ramps up. So we're essentially saying for 10 years, let's just go hands off, let's let the Arctic heal, let's explore it, let's find solutions to reduce the climate crisis, let's find solutions to reduce emissions like we're all doing here at COP, and just leave the ice alone. Because we don't need these industrial activities in the Central Arctic Ocean. We don't need to damage this ecosystem. And what we really need to do as a global community is to let this really vital part of our system heal. Because again, to go back to another catchphrase of GlobalChoices, we can't plant ice. Once all that ice melts, there is no way of getting it back. And so essentially we're saying, while it's there, let's protect it, let's not damage it any further, and let's get this crisis sorted as soon as we can.
Thank you, Beth. And now you've mentioned a few times about sort of this area that goes beyond international jurisdiction, this area that sort of is common to all. So, Maria, what about this sort of what we will term as the global commons? What is your view in relation to basically the Central Arctic Ocean being a global common?
Okay, so when we talk about the global commons, it means that all of us, like all the people here, everyone on the earth, they have a right to it, and they also have a duty to it. It's not, you don't talk about the rights always. You always need to know the duties, that what you need to do to protect these global commons. And these global commons, as she has already told, that what are the impacts, why is it important, and everything. Like, for example, even the food we eat, it's coming from the biodiversity, it's coming from the nature. So if you don't protect these global commons, where will you get your food? Like, what do you eat? Whatever you get, either you are a vegetarian, vegan, you are a meat eater, all of this is coming from the biodiversity. All of it is coming from the resources that we have. And these global commons, like, they are helping all these resources to grow, to be there for us. And it's important for us to take care of these. It's important for us to talk about these, and it's important for us to, like, be considerate. So that's the reason I guess it's important to talk about all these global commons, not just Arctic ice, all the other things that we have. We share the similar atmosphere, we share the similar air, similar waters, and all the things. And it's important because air, again, when I said the smoke problem in Pakistan, like, it's not that air doesn't know any boundaries. If it's here at one part, it's going to go there on the other part. You cannot ask for the passport, right? So that's the reason why I guess we all shall care. That's why I care, and I guess all of us shall care about it.
Oh, thank you. And then Beth, sort of, you mentioned sort of Ireland and then sort of your youth involvement. Do you think that there's enough emphasis placed on the Arctic, and in relation to youth, sort of like, do you see that it's just basically lacking that understanding of why the Arctic is important, and there should be much more, should be actually be there?
Yeah, I think at the minute, I mean, I don't know about any of you personally, but until I got involved with this, like I said, I wasn't really familiar with the Arctic and with these issues. And I think for a lot of us, it's kind of something that just happens up there, and then we know it exists, we know there's polar bears, we know the North Pole's there, but we don't really think about it that often. Or maybe that's just me. And so I think there's still not a lot of emphasis on it in political spaces. There's not a lot of political, I guess, urgency. And I wonder maybe sometimes that's a lack of understanding about how crucial the Arctic is, because we don't necessarily make the connection between a big frozen ocean and our ability to survive as a species necessarily. So I think there is increasing amounts of work being done to raise awareness about the importance of the Arctic. There's a lot of leadership from the communities that live in the Arctic as well. And I think networks like the Arctic Angels, what they really try and do is connect young women from around the world, Arctic and non-Arctic regions, to, I guess, advocate for the Arctic, to raise awareness of its importance in our systems, and to raise awareness of the importance of all of us thinking. Like, the moratorium is one solution. There are so many different solutions out there in terms of protecting the Arctic, and I think it's something that we really need everyone in every single sector to be thinking about, because as we keep saying, once this ice goes, that affects all of us, no matter where you live. Sea level rise, emissions, rising heat levels, all of these things are going to affect all of us. So yeah, I think it's definitely, there's a need for a greater sense of urgency and more people talking about it in these kinds of spaces.
And what about for you, Maria? I mean, I'm curious to learn what does your family think? What does your community think about? Like, do they see that as a little bit odd, or what's in their understanding?
Yeah, actually. For a country like Pakistan, like, when there are already economical stresses, people think that it's not, like, we are always confused that either the environment or either the food on the table, right? It's always a very big debate, and people say that, okay, we have this problem, why shall we care about the environment, why shall we care about the global commons or anything, like, you name it, right? But then when you see it, like, people in Lahore, I'm sure right now, they know that why is it important to talk about it, and why you need to be cautious about the choices you make, and why is it important to be accountable for your actions. It's not just that, and there are, like, so many things, like I always say that, as you said, that as Beth said, that you need to connect the dots. Like, if you're having a very high cost of living now in Pakistan, right? Even that is connected to what we are talking in a bigger picture. We need to connect the dots because it's all connected. We cannot stay alone. It's not that we have just one system. We're just gonna talk about the financial impact of it, and we are not gonna talk about environment. It's gonna crush. Like when we talk about floods in Pakistan, it means when the flood hits, country is economically hit as well, right? So that is why I guess it's very important to make connections. And when I speak about it in the community, now they realize the importance, because we cannot deny climate change, because we know that it's there. We have extreme, like in November, I'm wearing slippers around the COP venue, and even when I'm walking in the city, and people are like, aren't you cold? And I'm like, I'm missing cold in my country. In November in Pakistan, we used to have, like, November is cold month, but right now we are still wearing lawn, we are still wearing our slippers, and we are not even needing sweaters. So we are missing on a lot, and we cannot deny that. Being in a country in South Asia, being in a country like in Pakistan, we cannot just, right? So we know now the importance, everyone knows, because it's too bad. When you cannot breathe, then you cannot deny the importance of it. Then you just, because it's too bad in Lahore. Like my sister-in-law's family, they just came visit us like last week, and they were all sick. And you can imagine that why are they all sick? Like it's air that we have a small phrase in Urdu. We say that jaan hai to jahan hai. It means if you have life, then the world is there. But now we are turning it the other way around, that if there is jahan, if there is world, then there is jaan, there is life. So I guess we are like being more conscious now. Like we have to like think about ways, and then government is also taking steps. People are also taking steps. They are like more aware of it now, and the impacts are all across the country now. So I guess we are becoming more conscious now of all these things. And then there are like more to it. Like as Beth said, maybe we didn't know about Arctic. Like even 2 years ago, I didn't even think that I have to think about it. But now we are like, and it's a slow process, but it will take time. But I guess that if the sooner the better.
Thank you, Maria. And then Beth. Now, so what would you like governments to do? You know, you have this moratorium. You say like this is what we would like to do. What do you expect governments to do, or what's basically the next step?
Yeah, so we've been working on a text on the moratorium. We have it drafted. We've spoken with lots of different legal practitioners from around the world to basically get their feedback on it. And essentially now what we're asking for is for governments, for decision makers to endorse it, to endorse the idea of a moratorium, to endorse its principles, and to endorse this text. What we want to get is as many countries as possible agreeing that they're not going to respond to the loss of one of our most crucial earth systems by drilling for oil and gas in it. And instead they're going to protect it for ourselves, for our own survival, and also for that of future generations. And I think more broadly, what we're asking for is more long-term thinking. Because yes, if we ship more ships through the Arctic, some countries and some companies will make some money for the time being. That is a very small amount of money that will benefit a very small portion of the global population. But the cost to those countries and companies, but also to the wider global community, not just in terms of money, but at Climate Finance COP, I think it's important to note that, in the same way that what we don't spend in the NCQG now, we will have to spend 5 times in the future because of the extra losses. What some countries and companies gain financially from this exploitation now, the global community will pay back tenfold in money, in livelihoods lost, and fundamentally, dramatic, and fundamentally in lives lost as well. And I think that's what we're really trying to draw attention to, is that need for longer term thinking, because we can't just keep thinking about short-term economic gains over long-term livelihoods and sustainability. So I think on a very basic level, we're asking for endorsements of the moratorium, but on a longer term level, we're asking for them to stop thinking about only short-term financial gain and start thinking about our survival as a species.
Thank you, and thank you, Beth. And what about for you, Maria? What are the next steps? Sort of what do you see, and what would you like governments to do as well?
Okay, so in a shorter, like what Beth said, I would like to continue from that point, that we have to stop thinking on the shorter term goals now. We have to think long term. Because we have seen the impact. It's not that we are saying that in 2030 something is going to happen. It's like very near. We have reports that now by the end of 2025 in like the capital of Pakistan there is going to be water scarcity, right? So what's 2025? We are not in 1992 that we say 2025 is like really far. It's just next year, right? So now governments communities. And now I believe I have almost lost hopes on governments, but there is a way how governments work. So we as people, we need to be aware. I always say that education is important, knowing what the problem is. Know the problem. You might not know the solution, right? But knowing the problem is very important at this time. Know that there is a problem and we need to find solutions for it, and we need to find solutions for it together. So in a longer run, we want that people shall be aware of the problem. That is very important, and then try to look for solutions. And of course there are solutions, people are working on it. There are like so many things that can be done. So governments, then when there is a power of people, then we can push the governments. When there is a pressure group, you can push the government, and then that's how government listens. Government won't listen if I just speak about here. No. But if there are like more people with me, when everyone is speaking about it, then they will listen, and then they will adopt to the solutions that are already being provided. Like there is Moratorium, and then there is how to have sustainable agriculture in the country, how to have better economical stability in the country. And it is all connected. We cannot just say that we cannot work in silos. We have to network, we have to collaborate, we have to work together to have a sustainable future. Because again, where we started, we cannot plant ice, we cannot plant even anything else. What's lost, the natural resources, if they're not renewable, you cannot have them. So that is important to work together, not be in silos, connect, network, and then have strong pressure groups so that you can ask the government to work on the solutions. So that's pretty much it from us.
Thank you, Maria. Now we have a couple of minutes for any questions. Does anybody have any questions at all? No? Yeah? No question? Yes? Yeah? Oh, hold on, microphone coming. Hold on.
You cannot plant ice because, drum roll please, ice is not a plant.
Yeah,
So true.
exactly.
Right. Well done. Yeah. Thank you. That's right. Ice is not a plant. Therefore, we cannot grow it. Right. We have to preserve it. So thank you. Thank you for reminding us that. Thank you. Any other questions from the public? I think just in sort of like one word, sort of like hopes for the future. Maria and Beth, what word would you leave the listeners from this session, so they can feel empowered, just like, can do something? Is there any single word that you use, or a phrase? You don't have to use like.
I guess if I can give a sentence.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think the main thing is that no matter where you're from, the Arctic's going to affect us. And so we need as many people as possible to talk to your friends, talk to your families, talk to your decision makers if you can, about the Arctic, talk to them about the moratorium, get this on the agenda, and really get that focus on protecting the Arctic or protecting the ice while we still have it.
Thank you. And you, Maria?
So before I say something, we have a very few participants. Can I have your countries, please? Which country are you? United States. Are you?
I was just trying to tell you that we have just landed here from Lahore.
Oh, really?
And we have started breathing here.
Yes.
Because we have been facing smog, bad smog here in Lahore.
Yes, so.
I'm really happy to see you, Maria, that you are the hope for us. Because we can't breathe in Lahore.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you, and I'm really glad that you're here, and I hope that whatever I said, you can second it. Yeah. So my comment would be you see Global North and Global South maybe. So I would tell Global North to know your privilege and know how it is to live without that privilege. Talk to us, right? Because I always say when you have a privilege, you never know how it is to live without that. If you have lights all the time, if you have electricity all the time, if your burners are running all the time, if you have hot water in the winters and you have cold waters in the summers, it's your privilege. Ask us that what it is not to have light, maybe for 4 hours, and in villages it's even a longer time. I'm living in a city. Even I'm privileged in my country, right? So I would just say that know your privilege and know how it is to live without that privilege, and how you can speak for us, and maybe we can also, I'm not saying that we are coming from a bad country, but it's just the circumstances. You have a lot to learn from us, we have a lot to learn from you, and let's try to have a better future together.
Thank you, Maria. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy enjoy the rest of COP. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.